I think it really came from just my love of movies and how I've always wanted to incorporate all my favorite parts of my favorite movies into one thing. And I really wanted to write a story that would allow me to do that. Of course, money was definitely a factor when I wrote the story, so I tried to keep it as simple as possible, but at the same time not cheap. I mean, I really wanted to add a certain production value to it to, really show people that this art is still alive, the indie filmmaking art. It doesn't have to, you don't have to adhere to a lot of rules when it comes to indie film. It's just really, getting your feet wet and really seeing if you have what it takes to do this for a living. So the story just came from me knowing what kind of movies people like to watch, or at least my friends, and just sit there and watch it and just kind of be intrigued. A lot of this stuff comes from personal experience, but a lot of it is just kind of made up, or comes from outside perspectives, things I've seen happen to people I know. And I think it's important to still tell stories where people talk or act the way you would expect them to act. And that's really where it came from. Look, if your dream is to go to, Los Angeles, New York, now Toronto, basically to be a filmmaker, I say just keep an open mind. These places are where the industry people come together and really make things happen in terms of planning, putting the structure together, and it's a business. I chose to shoot in this area simply because it was just easier. I'm from this area, or have been in this area for a long time. I'm very familiar with it. Grew up really just looking at all the unused production value that's here. And we really just decided, look, let's just place it here. It's got everything we need. Going back to all the guys we grew up with, Robert Rodriguez, Kevin Smith, these guys, they filmed movies with what was available to them. And I always found that inspiring. And when I decided that I'm finally going to do this, I said, I know I'm not going to have a lot of money and time, so let's just bring the people here that we need, because this is my comfort zone. So. Anywhere you go, they have laws. Anywhere you go is going to have these kind of challenges and barriers that are going to prevent you from just going out and just doing something because you want to do it. So in this case, we chose to shoot Virginia Beach and Norfolk. Norfolk mostly for the setting and what it gives us. Virginia Beach because you just don't need shooting permits to shoot Virginia Beach. As long as you're respectful and aren't on private property, and you let people know what you're doing, that's the main thing. It was just a lot easier. In that respect, Virginia Beach is very film friendly, and people are very excited to see something shooting in this area. Obviously we're very proud to have a military presence here, but that has its definite drawbacks when it comes to filmmaking. We shot Virginia Beach near the ocean front, literally adjacent to an airfield. So constantly we had fighter jets going overhead, and if you're from this area, know anything about this area, you kind of learn to tune it out, but for new people that aren't from here, it punches you in the face at how loud these things can get. So in between, setting up shots, if you're doing something very dialogue heavy, it was a challenge. So I did learn that. Would I shoot here again? Absolutely. It's just it would have to be more prep time and more scouting, or more careful scouting, to really know what you're getting into. It's a pleasing environment, and I was very happy to shoot here. So. It really came down to my producer kind of talking me into it, and the reason for it, she says, was because of attracting talent. It's just going to be so much easier. And the reason for that is it's their safety net. It tells them that they're guaranteed certain things. It's a union, so they're protected, and it also looks good for them. I mean, especially the group of actors that we got that were just getting into the game. For them, they were shocked. As a director, you really want to respect the actors you're working with, but you also want to come down to their level. I mean, they look to you as their boss, but in reality, you're their fan. I mean, the reason why I cast my actors is because I like what they do. And I tried to show that on set by giving them a certain amount of freedom. I really appreciate this being a SAG production for what it's done. And yes, it was a good chunk of our small, tiny budget. But it was worth it. You know, stylistically, I really wanted to kind of bring a cinema element to this movie, and what I mean by that is just give it a certain look, a look people would hopefully just eventually tie to the movie itself. Like, it's the look and the story and the music, it's all going to be recognizable, hopefully. Changing Hampton Roads into what I kind of envisioned for the movie, which is a very realistic approach. Not everything is glossed up, not everything has the perfect lighting on it, or even all the actors don't even have makeup on half the time. It's just a matter of what I think authentic. I would say, shooting-wise and production, the location scouting was very important when it came to that. We knew this movie was going to be a lot of natural lighting and a lot of practical lighting that was available because we had minimal lighting resources. I knew that technology was going to be our savior. And by that, I mean, in post-production, you can do a lot of things now. And me being a guy who likes to draw and paint and always admired art in itself, I just decided to kind of paint the movie as I was cutting. So I did try to give it kind of a cohesive look to it, maybe like a hue that I thought would give people the gut reaction to what was going on. So, in terms of turning this area into that, it was somewhat of a challenge, but not really. A lot of this area it's not what you would expect, because this area is generally advertised as, you know, a very approachable, kid-friendly or cookie-cutter type area, or kind of, you know, and that's great, but that for a lot of people, that's not the reality. So I just decided to go that way with it. Yeah, planning for sure. I think we were in pre-production for a good 6 months in terms of knowing how we were going to be shooting this movie in terms of a skeleton crew. Originally, it was just my kind of wishful thinking. I just really wanted a tight-knit skeleton crew that we could just set up, you know, break down very easily, and with minimal amount of transportation, get to where we need to go, and boom, that's it. The reality is, for a type of movie like this, where you want to have that kind of production value, you need somebody kind of overlooking the major parts of the production. And so we decided we do need a guy to be our production designer to make sure everything in front of the camera was what we intended it to be. Shooting a feature film in 16 days, you know, with one camera set up and it's a narrative, it is a challenge, but what we proved was that it can be done. And it definitely weighed heavily on a lot of people, and it stressed us out sometimes, and some days it was just like the best thing in the world. I mean, it was, for a lot of us, this is what we want to do for a living. This is how we want to make money. And I would say that the only possible way for somebody to pull off something like this in that short amount of time, because especially since we were going by, you know, SAG rules, which is actors can only work for a certain amount of time during the day. And we definitely adhered to those rules. We did not break them. And that makes it a challenge as well. So we had to plan every shot, and also the availability of our actors. If we were lucky enough to get a known actor to be a part of this movie, we knew that we were going to have to go around their schedule. So we had to wait until all the actors were confirmed before we could create a shooting schedule. That was up to like the last week, couple days, maybe a week. if you really take the time and quality to, or the time to really pay attention to the details instead of just, I guess, appeasing others just to get it done. You know, I'm sure there's going to be some of that if I ever do this again for somebody else, but I figure since this is mine, I might as well take my time with it. Because I'll probably never have an opportunity like this, or who knows, you know, you have to kind of think that way. And to a certain degree, I mean, I'm not saying you should give up hope, but if this was my one shot, I want it to be worth it. So I will take my time.